Welcome back to another RPG Maker Unite tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about game flow. So with that said, let's get started. Alright, so here we are in a tutorial project, and today we're just going to cover flow for events. And so you can right click on an event line here, click new event. You can see that we have this flow control. Now there is this one called branch settings, which if we go to MZ and MV, you'll see that it's called conditional branch. So that makes more sense that it's a conditional branch versus just the branch settings, but that's all we have for this one. So you can click on branch settings here, and then this is going to be like your if statement, all right? And so you can say whether you want an else branch. So you can say that if this is true, then we're going to run this logic. If this is not true, then we're going to run this logic, and then it will just continue on down the list. Now, there are some cool things that we can do with Unite versus MZ. For example, we can see that we have select multiple right here, and I can click on yes, and then you can see that I can select what kind of multiple is it. Is it AND statement, which means that they both have to be true, or is it an OR statement, which means either one can be true, and this will run. Now, I think this is different because in MZ, there is no choice for multiple. There's only a choice to create an else branch. And so if you had to do this in MZ, you could do this via script, of course, but if you had to do this in MZ, you would have to select one, and then I would think you would have to add another one, and then make sure that that is also true, and then run your logic in there. Where Unite kind of can skip this by saying that we want to have not only the switch condition true, but we also want to have this variable condition true. And if we wanted it to be an AND, we'd have to change it to AND. So then this would mean that can enter the house is on, and this undefined variable equals 0. And so then we would run the logic in here. If not, else we would do this. Now we could do another branch, conditional branch on the if not to make sure that this condition is also true. Now we have several dozens of conditions really. We have self switches. These are switches that are for the event only. And then you have the variable and normal switches. These are the global switches that you can change right here under switch and variable. The self switches you have to change in the event themselves. So that would be like right here. And then also if you're changing them in the event right here, you would click on this and then control the self switch. And then you say which one. It comes with 4 by default. Now moving on here, we can see that there are some other things here. We can do a timer. All right, so if you start a timer, which you start a timer via the game progress right here. So if you start a timer, then the next thing you can do is you can check for that timer and see if it is below or above a certain value. All right. Next thing you can do is you can check on actors. You can check on if you have an actor by selecting this list right here. You can also check on specific things from the actor. So is the name something? Is it a class of this? Does it have this skill? Does it have this weapon? And is it equipped? Notice that it says is equipped right here. Does it have this armor equipped? Or is it in this state? And then you can select from the states. So you do have that kind of information too that you can use for these conditional branches. You have the same thing kind of for enemies. And then for characters, characters are the things that are in this map. So if you click on this right now, you can see that we have the player, we have this event, which is referring to this event, the one that's calling it, or it has its own event there too if you wanted to select it from another event. And then you can check on what it's facing. So I don't know, this should have been like, is character facing a direction, maybe, instead of just characters, but at least we have that option. You can check on if you have a certain vehicle. You can check on gold amount. You can check on items. This specifically is held, so you must have to have it. And then weapons is held, include equipment. Armor, same thing. And then you have a button. And this is going to be for your input button. So you can select from all of these input buttons, and then you can say if it's being held down, is triggered, being held down, is released. So these are kind of cool options right here. But yeah, that does it for this conditional branch. So if we get rid of this, we can now go back to another one, and we have a loop. Now a loop is going to repeat the action until you break the loop or exit processing. So for example, what I mean by that is that you can have a loop of showing text, and it's just gonna, we'll just show text loop, okay? And then what you would do is you could set a timer before the loop, or you could add a variable +1. So for example, we can go to control update a variable right here. We'll just do this right here. Say that we're going to add to this. We're going to add it by 1. And then what we're going to do, so we have the loop going on of this text. We're then adding the variable right here. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to check the branch settings, and we're going to say if the variable, this one right here, is equal to or greater than, and let's just say 3 times. So we'll see the text 3 times, and then it will be adding. And then what will happen is we're going to break the loop, and then we're going to continue by saying loop is done. And that should end. So now the texts are kind of unique because they kind of pause right here. So this won't be updating while the text is showing. I have to press enter for this to actually update and then run this check. But if we play test this, we can see that it will work. So I'll just go to here and it says loop, 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 and then the loop is done. And then that is the loop. All right. I believe that we can also do the same thing with exit event here. So if I go back to the Forest Town, go back to this page 1 here, and if I was to break loop right here, so instead of breaking loop, if I went to exit event processing, what's going to happen is it's just going to close this whole thing down, and it's not going to even run this. So we can test this out. So yeah, you can see that it didn't even run that last part because we exited the event. All right, so now if we go back to these events here, and let's just check what else is available for us. So we did the break loop, we did the exit event processing. We now have a common event, so we can actually call a common event from here. So this is kind of interesting because you can start to embed events, because in your common events, you could have embedded other common events. And so you can kind of create these little functions, which is kind of interesting. For example, let's just create this common event right here. And let's see, I have a common event called text, but I'm not sure why I named it text here. So instead, let's just name this like a function. So I'll just say function add 1 to variable. All right. And so what this is going to do is I'm going to delete what was ever in here. And I'm going to say new event. And what this common event is going to do is it's going to be the one that actually updates the variable. So it's going to add 1 to that variable. And so then we're going to go back to this event page right here. And so instead of, let's see, we want it right here. So instead of this one updating it right here, we're going to copy this event, paste it, so that it should be underneath this loop. Yeah, it is. All right. And then I'm going to delete it from here. So what's going to happen is this is going to act like a little function, and it's going to run the common event, which adds to the variable. And then we're still going to check for the variable in here, and then exit processing. All right. And so this will work as well. All right. So you can see that common events, they can be whole events themselves, or they can be these little functions that can do things for you. And that way, if you ever wanted to add anything else, you didn't have to go back to the event. You could just go to the common action, say, you know what, I also want it to do this when it's updating this variable. All right, so there is one more thing to go over here, and that is the labels. Labels and jump to labels, they kind of go together. You can use a label separately to kind of organize your code, but you can also use comments for the same thing. So you probably want to use a comment. But what these do is they essentially can section off your code, and then you can jump to that label. So if you had, now it's really easy to look at in the realm of show choices, because normally what would happen here is when you would choose yes, you would then run the yes logic. Or if you choose no, you would run the no logic. So let's do this in the sense of labels now. Okay. So for example, let's just create a label, and this will be called label yes. And then let's create a label and call it label no. All right. Now to control this, for text, the show choices is just a lot easier. But let's just say that it was a non-text solution. This is an easy way to visualize it, so I hope you can follow me. But these are now sections. But the thing is, though, is that if we go to yes, okay, and by going to yes, what I mean is we will jump to label, and then we will select the label yes. And then if we go to no, then we will jump to label, and we will go to label no. Now, what's going to happen here is that if we choose yes, we're going to jump to label yes. So it's going to skip anything. Let's just say that there was something else above here called, I don't know, some scrolling text. All right. It will skip this text and it will jump to the label yes. The problem is that once you go to this label, it will continue going downward, meaning that it will even go to the next labels thing. So what you have to add is you have to add the exit event processing. So you really have to control these labels. They're not something that you can just do and it's going to be self-contained like this show choices. And then the next thing that we would do is we would add in the text to just show that we can see this. So this is going to be the yes text. And then this is going to be the no text. All right. And so with this simple setup, we are going to be able to choose yes or no. It's then going to jump to the correct label and then run that code. And then it's going to then clean itself up. So with this one, because it was the bottom one, we actually didn't need event exit processing because it's going to be done no matter what. It's only the yes that we needed event exit processing, and technically this one as well. So we would need to copy this and put it right here. And the reason why is because let's just say that we have an option. I'm not sure if there is an option to cancel. There should be one to cancel, I thought. Yeah, so choice 2 would be cancel. Let's just do 3 options here. And let's just make it to where this one continues. So it's going to say, let's just say option 3. It's going to continue here, and then it's going to exit the event before it runs the labels. Because again, it will just keep running down the list. It doesn't matter if it's a label or not. So you have to control when it exits. All right, that's the only really thing you got to think about this. So now we can test this out. All right, so first I'm going to cancel. And this is the scrolling text. All right. Okay, next I'm going to say yes. All right. So yeah, these are the basic flows for events. And with these, you can do just all sorts of things that will control your game. And then you can manipulate those values with these ones and your actors and your parties and things like this. And then that's how you can kind of control your game. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, comment below. We'll get you figured out. With that said, I'll see you at the next video.